Welcome back to ADHD Support Talk. I'm your co host, Lynne Edris. And as a productivity and ADHD coach, I empower professionals to take control of their time and their lives so that they can fulfill their own potential and have more time and energy for what matters most to them. I'm a woman with ADHD, so I've been where so many of my clients are, and I've come out the other side, so to speak. So I always say your ADHD doesn't go away, but I've gone from living in that constant state of chaos and overwhelm and underperformance to live a life of more success and fulfillment than I once dreamed was possible. And that's what I know is possible for every single one of you. You can learn more about me and what I do and the programs and services I offer at www.coachingadvantages.com. Today, Tara McGillicuddy and I are here together. And in a moment, we're going to talk about ADHD awareness and the importance of ADHD awareness. Welcome back, Tara.
Hi, Lynn. I'm glad to be back. My name is Tara McGillicuddy. I am the co-host of ADHD Support Talk Radio, the creator of it. I have been involved in the online ADHD community since 1997, a quarter of a century, if I do the math correctly.
Wow.
Uh,
Wow.
I'm the director, host, founder of ADDclasses.com, which we are celebrating our 20th year, and the host and creator of the ADHD Awareness Expo. And as we're filming this, we are in the middle of the 15th annual online ADHD Awareness. I'm an ADHD coach, woman with ADHD. You can learn more about me by going to my website, taramcgillicuddy.com. So yeah, I thought since I'm in the middle of the ADHD awareness, we're in full swing, it makes sense to come on and talk about ADHD awareness in relationship to adults with ADHD.
Absolutely. It's so important. Every October is ADHD Awareness Month, and there are some amazing events and resources available, including the ADHD Awareness Expo. Where do you want to jump in, Tara? How do you
Well,
want to
my
introduce
take
this?
on ADHD awareness might be different than the Attention Deficit Disorder Association's view on ADHD awareness. A lot of these organizations, their main goal is to educate the public about, and there's definitely a need for that. I believe
Absolutely.
that's important, but I think what is even more important, those of us who have the ADHD or know someone who has ADHD, to be aware of how ADHD affects you and to better understand ADHD on an individual basis. If you want to get out there and advocate for the world about ADHD, maybe you do that. But it's essential that we, as people who have ADHD, or if you're someone who knows or loves someone with ADHD, that you are aware and understand how ADHD impacts you on that individual basis.
Absolutely. It's important to understand the condition in general. And we know a lot more about it now than we did 10,
Yes.
15, 20 plus years ago when you and I started in this world. And that's a wonderful thing. Understanding ADHD in general as a condition is really important. I agree. Understanding how it shows up in the individual is really key because there are no two human beings that are identical. And ADHD is unique in every single person. I often say your ADHD is as unique as your thumbprint.
Yeah.
So how it shows up in you, how it shows up in me, they're going to
Yeah. You and I are both women with ADHD. We have some similarities because of that, but we also have a lot of differences which complement each
absolutely.
other. We can understand how ADHD impacts us generally, but also it's not just the ADHD, it's your environment, it's your history, it's your brain chemistry. You're more than just your ADHD. This is one of the reasons why I've created the ADHD resources that I do, like ADD classes, the ADHD Awareness Expo. So, what I do with that is I bring together experts in the field and they come on via video and talk about different ways to manage, to understand, to cope with ADHD, like how to deal with procrastination, how to be more productive. So there's lots of reasons. Or the reasons I do that is so people can understand ADHD. I'm not training them how to be an ADHD advocate and go and tell the world about ADHD. If you want to do that, there's resources for that, but it's more about how ADHD impacts you and how to better cope with ADHD or even thrive with ADHD.
Absolutely. We are all different, right? And every single one of us has unique strengths, unique tendencies, unique ways about doing things that are going to work for them. And each one of us processes a little bit differently than the next person. Every one of us organizes a little differently than the next person.
Mhm.
So, really understanding yourself, understanding your strengths, understanding your tendencies, but also understanding your unique challenges and how they show up
Yes.
in you and in your life is really key to being able to find approaches and strategies that work for you and that
Yeah.
can change your life. Because I do believe that ADHD doesn't have to be debilitating all the time.
No. And it's also important, I think, to know what your goals and your values and your needs are. I think that's
Yes,
essential for ADHD awareness. When you're in a situation where you realize, especially if it's involving another person, and you're realizing, okay, this is because of my ADHD, what's the best way for you to get your needs met? In some situations, it may be to say, okay, I have ADHD. In a lot of situations, it's more important, okay, what's the best way to get my needs met? It may be like, okay, I learn better this way. I process better this way. Or in some situations, it's realizing your basic need is safety and security. Sometimes it's removing yourself from the situation or setting effective boundaries. So I think that's something to really pay attention to. Okay, you have ADHD. You and I have ADHD, but we probably have different needs and values, especially in different situations. And what is the
absolutely.
best way to get our needs met? It's not always telling, hi, I have ADHD and you need to accommodate me. In a school situation, that probably works, but real world situations, more often than not, that's not the best way to get your needs met.
Especially not in the beginning. So I always talk with my clients about instead of focusing on disclosure, which is all
Yeah.
related, that we don't have to go right to that. If that's important, make sure what you're getting yourself into, make sure you're familiar with your rights and the organization's responsibilities. Be careful to know what you're involved in. But to be able to say, this is how I work best, this is what I need, this is what works best for me, it
Yes.
doesn't matter whether you're talking about ADHD, some other kind of learning disability, or just some other way of processing to know what works for you and to be able to ask for and advocate for what you need. We
Yes.
can often get a lot of what we need in an informal way when we learn how to advocate for ourselves and have that high level awareness about how we work best, what we need to perform at the level of our abilities, what we need to have in place, systems, tools, strategies, all of that.
ADHD more often than not plays an important part in that, but it's also
Absolutely.
the other things that make you. So
Absolutely.
it's good to understand the ADHD, but the rest of you, it's also essential to understand that when you're advocating for yourself, trying to get your needs met, it's knowing both. In disclosure, it's about knowing your audience and reading the room.
Right.
That's very important because you can get fired if you have ADHD, even if you disclose ADHD. And what's going to happen is you're going to be the one that needs to prove it was because of ADHD. And you're the one who's going to have to get an attorney, going to have to figure out how long. Because what happens is even if you're going to sue, you have to wait months to
Yeah.
get a hearing. So that's something to really to think about where some people just, okay, I have ADHD, it's documented, I do what I needed to do. In that situation, maybe think about, is this the best job for me? Can I get accommodations or am I doing something that, yeah, it's related to ADHD, but for most jobs, you need to be there on time no matter what. That's the thing that
Right.
gets a lot of people fired, or even if you're like 2 minutes late to work, people like, so that's something. How can you do what you need to do at work if you get fired? Or it messes your self esteem. Think
Oh
about
my
the
goodness. Yeah.
situation. Is there something I can do in the situation? Maybe it's taking a class, learning better time management skills. Maybe it's working with a coach. Maybe it's thinking, oh, looking at for a new job. So there's so many different factors. But like I have a friend who recently got fired over the past year. And this person knew he had ADHD and had it documented. And this, I think, happened probably in February. He doesn't have his hearing until December.
Wow.
This is someone who's educated about ADHD and understands it. So this is something to really think about. He probably had other things that weren't just ADHD related, but
Right.
ADHD is one of the big things. If you're in a situation, maybe think about, can I make it better? Can I do the job better? Or is it time for me to look for a new job? What's the best way to get my needs met? Yes, let's take
Yeah.
ADHD into consideration, but let's look at everything else.
There's a lot to consider, and individual awareness is a big
Yeah.
piece of it. Absolutely.
Can we talk a little bit about the ADHD Awareness Expo?
I think it's a really important resource. One of the things I love about it is the variety of speakers that you have every year.
Yes, yes.
Every year, you have a wide variety of speakers that kind of cater to different audiences, bring different perspectives, bring different. And I think that's a really important way to improve your own ADHD awareness about yourself as well as ADHD in
Yeah.
general.
One thing that's very different than a lot of the other online summits, conferences, whatever they call them now, is that usually, not always, but most of those conferences, you sign up for free and you have 24 hours to listen to or watch the sessions until they go away or you pay for them. With the online ADHD Awareness Expo, one thing I do that's different is you have weeks to watch them, to access them. Like they're released, like right now as we're recording, this is the end of October and the expo is available until the 15th. Some of the sessions are released on the 15th of October and you have a full month to access them. Majority of them you have weeks to access, depending on when you sign up. If you sign up on the 12th of November and it's only available until the 15th, you have days. But that's one thing because a lot of times when I watch something or listen to something, I, the third or fourth time I listen to it or watch it, I notice something different. With ADHD, sometimes we're rushing to listen to everything within 24 hours, or life happens and we are not able to watch or listen in that 24-hour period. I offer an upgrade package that gives you access to this year's sessions and sessions from past years. So there's dozens of sessions. And I also, one thing I'm doing differently, I did it last year, but it's relatively new, is a watch party. During COVID, I was doing networking sessions because we needed that interaction. And Zoom was the only way we could interact with human beings in
Right.
2020. A lot of us didn't leave the house unless we had to in the fall of 2020. But people like that connection. What I was learning is people were going to the networking sessions, and I'd say 75% of the people hadn't watched any of the sessions yet. So my directions were, let's talk about the session. Let's watch the session, talk about it. And then I was on some type of training and they did a watch party. They were promoting one of the free things and people were coming to the watch party and watching it together. So I did that last year. It was the first time and it works out well. So we'd watch a little bit of it. I'd stop. People would give their thoughts. I also give out prizes and stuff. So it's fun. In addition to educational, it's fun. And you're hearing other people or you're seeing that they can relate to it. So the watch parties are something new and different that I really haven't seen done in any of the other online ADHD summits. So not only do you get your own perspective, you can get other people's perspective, and it's a scheduled time to watch it together.
I love that. It gives just a little bit of structure.
Yeah.
Great idea. You always have good ideas, creative things that you can add to the expo.
Yeah.
Anything else you want our listeners to know?
I think that's the main thing that going back, that ADHD awareness as an individual with ADHD. Yeah, it's great that we have other people spreading ADHD awareness to the general public, but ADHD awareness on an individual level is key. Understanding how ADHD impacts you, also being aware of the types of resources that are out there for ADHD. I've been involved in the ADHD coaching field for 25 years, and every time I think everyone knows about ADHD coaching,
Mhm.
and I'll get to what is ADHD coaching? How do I, so I think because I've been involved so long, sometimes I have to be reminded that people are new and they don't know what's out there. So knowing, okay, what's an ADHD coach? What type of resources out there? There's support groups, accountability groups, the awareness that you don't have to be alone, that there's community and
Yes.
connection out there. Whether it's a professional like an ADHD coach, a support group, or just listening to a podcast like this, where, oh my gosh, they get it, can be life
Right.
changing with ADHD awareness. That connection piece is essential to ADHD awareness, being aware that there's help and there's connection and you don't need to be isolated.
Absolutely. You are not alone. There are, what is it? Something like 20 million people in the world with
Yeah.
ADHD.
Yeah.
So finding your community, whether it's in our ADHD Support Talk Facebook community or somewhere else, but having those connections and that camaraderie with people that really understand
Yeah.
what you struggle with and
Yeah.
what it's like to walk in similar shoes can be
Yeah.
really powerful.
And people that have overcome or dealt with certain ADHD related challenges. We all have ADHD. We're all going to have ADHD moments. We're going to have good days and bad days. But a
Right.
lot of the people I collaborate with in the ADHD Expo and other online resources I create, they've been there. They've done that. Not they'll talk about, okay, this what my life was like this. This is what I learned to do, whether it's something they created on their own, a book they read, to know that someone else can overcome it. A lot of people, like, they talk about it, get the down and dirty. Like Alan Brown, who has been on the podcast in ADHD, he talks about how awful his life was. He went through some bad stuff and he shares that. And that helps people. My life was tough, but maybe I can take that one step to change it. People like, oh, they have it all together. I have it more
Oh,
together
yeah.
than I had 10 years ago, but I still struggle. We still
Yeah.
struggle. So life throws crazy things at us, but we can
Absolutely.
overcome. It's easier to overcome it, I think, than it was for me 10, 15, 25 years ago.
We all have good days and we have
Yeah.
bad days, right? I always
Yeah.
tell my clients, we want those days where ADHD wins to be the exception, not the rule.
Yeah.
That's why I say and always try to remind people in the intro, ADHD doesn't go away,
No.
but you sure can live well with it. And it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be the struggle that it is for so many of us on
Yeah.
an all day, everyday basis that really drags your life
Yeah.
down. We really
Sometimes
can.
it's finding strategies that work with our brain. Sometimes it's shifting your mindset, the way you think about stuff that goes on between your ears or whoever you phrase it. Those things can be changed. Mindset usually takes a bit to change, but you're always growing, you're always changing. If you get into more of that mindset, then okay, my life sucks, which sometimes life does suck. You can shift your perspective, and I think the ADHD Awareness Expo is a great place to start. Even if you've been involved in the ADHD community for decades and you've been managing your ADHD for years, you can shift your perspective. I went back this year and watched some of the sessions from 8 years ago, and I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I haven't heard that in a while. So
Right.
whether you're brand new, just identifying, or you were just diagnosed that you have ADHD, the ADHD Awareness Expo can be helpful. Or if you're someone that's known you've had ADHD since childhood or anything in between, it can be very helpful.
Absolutely. We hear things differently and things hit us differently when
Yes,
we hear
yes.
them at different times in our lives and depending on what's going on. I think there's always a fresh perspective, something new, a different way to look at something that can be helpful. I think you never know too much about yourself or about ADHD to
Yes,
not be
yes.
able to benefit from something like the ADHD Awareness Expo.
Thank you for having me come on and talk to you about it, Lynn.
Yeah, I'm so glad we could do this. I hope you all will check out Tara where they can learn more about you and the expo.
TaraMcGillicuddy.com is probably the best place to start. You'll find links to the ADHD Expo and other products and services I offer. Thank you so much, Lynn, and thank you everyone for listening.
Join us in the ADHD Support Talk Facebook group to talk about this episode, share thoughts, ideas for future episodes, suggest guests, ask questions, or just connect with us. If you found the podcast helpful or you enjoy it, we always appreciate if you leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. The more 5-star reviews we get, the more people can find us and get the help and support they need. Thank you all for listening. And as always, thank you for your attention.